So my drash is called On the Other Side, and we're reading Parshat Devarim. I want to share something with you. You know, every time I go on vacation, when I really, really need a vacation, and I mean like a real vacation, not a little weekend getaway, but like a real vacation, I need a break. Every time I go on vacation, I need to go somewhere else. I can't stay at home. I realized this about myself a number of years ago, that if I do what we call staycation, I don't actually rest. I find stuff around the house to do because I'm right there. It's right in front of me, and I'm going to be cleaning up the backyard or doing something. It's not going to be a real vacation because I don't know about you, but I'm that kind of person. I just can't sit still when there's stuff needs to be done in front of me. So I realized that this is the kind of person I am and stop fighting. And for vacations, I just choose to go away somewhere, anywhere away from my house. And the problem is that I love my house because I have a beautiful house. My wife has worked really hard to make it beautiful and comfortable. And every time I wonder when we go on vacation, would it be nice? You know, would it be something close enough? But that's what I have to do. That's what I learned about myself. And so in our Parsha, Israel is standing on the other side. That's how it begins. They're standing on the other side of Jordan, and they're right across the river from what is the Promised Land. They have been anticipating this moment now for 40 years. Now, this could have happened a long time ago, but so it happened 40 years later. And in Hebrew, just the very first verse picks up these words, and it says, Be'ever Hayarden Bamidbar, which means on the other side of Jordan, in the wilderness. And I read those words and they just jumped out at me. And I said, Lord, what's in here? These are just simple words, very simple descriptions. But as I thought about it more, I realized but it has to be a depth in the meanings of these words. And as I considered the feelings of the people who stood on the other side of the Jordan River, I realized that they were probably frustrated, standing on the very edge of their destiny. Their future is right there, right across the river Jordan, just on the other side. They have wandered from one place to another for a long time. They have not had home. Those who are standing actually right there on the other side, they've never had home. An entire generation was raised in a wilderness without a place to call their own. So now finally, at this moment, they're standing on the other side. And what happens? Moshe decides to recount the entire history of Israel. That's what happens. These words that I'm quoting to you, they're very, very simple. But they just describe the location, okay? But there's so much more there. There's feelings, there's emotions. That's what I realized. What our ancestors were feeling is that they were ready to go, but they had to stand still for just a little while longer. And where were they standing? Well, it says Bamidbar, in the wilderness. What's a wilderness? Wilderness is a dry place, arid place without resources, without goods, without the things you need. And so here they are looking across to something that God has said is land flowing with milk and honey. But meanwhile, they have to stand on the other side in the wilderness and listen to Moshe. Standing and listening to Moshe is hard. And some of you may feel this way, and I already shared with you that I have a hard time with just standing still, especially when I know what needs to be done. And so maybe from time to time you come to the synagogue and you feel in a similar way. Listening to the songs or the prayers, maybe the words of the Torah. Maybe you feel that way when you read the Torah at home. You open the scriptures and you're looking, what's next? You kind of feel like you're standing still on the other side of the river and you're about to cross over into something, but not just yet. Nothing is happening right this second. So in this parsha, it just stretches. It stretches just, and if you were there, I'm sure it would stretch into forever. Because Moshe gives instructions and he starts recounting the history of Israel. He goes all the way back to Sinai. He decides to recount the history by going back to Sinai and slowly, step by step, reminding Israelites what has happened. Well, and if you've been reading Bamidbar, then you're probably saying to yourself, really? Didn't we just read this? Again? You need to go over this again? We need to go over this right now? And the answer, of course, is yes, we need to go over it. Moshe is wise. He knows what he's doing. Now, If you feel that you have been standing still for too long, if you feel that you should be crossing over to the other side right now, don't worry, you will. Hashem is with you. He led you up to this point, up to this very moment. He's been leading you. Trust that the reason why you're standing on the other side just for a little while longer, there's a purpose in that. Trust the guidance that Hashem has been offering you all this time. And maybe it seems too slow to you. While you're on the other side, what you must do is you must listen. Because that is what Moshe is doing. He is saying words. This passage is called Devarim, right? Words. Because it begins with Ele HaDevarim. These are the words. And then he launches straight into the words, into recounting this history. So why? Why must you listen before you just forge forward and do what you know your destiny has prepared for you? Because you see, on the other side, while there are wonderful opportunities, there are also dangers, and there also will be tests. That's what you have to realize. There will be trials. If Hashem's words do not penetrate you sufficiently, then you might be in danger. You will likely make wrong turns. You may turn aside. You may lose your resolve. Something will happen, and you may even forget where you come from. You may even forget what Hashem has done for you because of all these new things that are in front of you. It's easy to get sidetracked. So the Devarim, these words, the recap of history, is not just a delay tactic. They have to be planted firmly in you. And they had to be planted in the sons of Israel, right at that moment, standing on the other side. You know, Jacob once stood on that same exact bank of that same exact water source, and he had to cross it over. If you remember his story, he also pleaded before God because he was fearing for his life. He's going to cross over and meet Esau. And he prayed, and he asked God for a blessing, and he had a very interesting encounter with this malach, this mysterious man, and he demanded of him a blessing, and yes, he got what he wanted. He walked away limping and with a new name. That was Jacob. And you know, as I think about that very source of water, I think about Yeshua walking into those waters, knowing full well that the moment that he walks out, a new stage in his life is about to begin. He's going to embark on his mission, which will ultimately end in terrible pain. That's what he did. And as I think about it, just as soon as he entered the water and he exited, the next thing, he is in the wilderness. And what happens in the wilderness is testing. And he has to face the temptations. And he overcomes those temptations. But do you know how he overcomes those temptations? By quoting the words. What words? Actually, he's going to quote from the parsha we're going to read next week. All of his words are going to come from that very parsha. Isn't it amazing that once they're planted within you, you can withstand those tests and temptations? So you see, if you're standing on the other side right now, and this is how you feel, and I don't know, maybe you're there, maybe not. Maybe you're ready to move on, and you're anticipating your blessing, you're anticipating your future, your next, whatever that may be. I say pray and listen. Listen first, because the words that Hashem has for you, they are true, and they need to be implanted within you. Don't lose heart. Don't worry. Don't get impatient. Just as Hashem was with Jacob, just as Hashem was with the tribes of Israel when they entered the land of promise, He is with you. Standing on the other side, just a tiny bit longer, has a purpose.